Hey there guys, how's it going? It is Senpai Torpid here today, bringing you another game series from the Elite League Season 7. This is actually the finals of the upper bracket, so the semi-finals to the entire tournament itself. So whoever wins this series will go on to the actual grand finals itself, but because this is the upper bracket, whoever wins this series will get a free win in the grand finals. That's the way they're justifying it, rather than playing out two best of fives, because that'd be insane. Now, there is something a little bit funny going on with the replays here. I've actually lost one of the replays, and I mean, it's not just me, like, everyone has lost one of the replays. I don't know what happened. Clearly, the players didn't save all the replays manually themselves, but in theory, it shouldn't matter, because you use the L for the league games, and it should put them on the database and store them permanently, but there's some technical issue and that hasn't worked out. Basically, it stored the wrong replay, so I can't find them, and that's the reason I haven't actually cast every single series in this league. There's been major technical problems with it, so I think going forward, one thing we're definitely going to have to do is, whoever is refereeing the games or streaming them, they 100% have to manually save every single game, because clearly the database and the automated features cannot be relied upon. Regardless, what that means is that the current position is Val Hero has 1 win in the best of 5 and Toil has 0 going into this game. Now, matchup, pretty conventional matchup this one. It's kind of a classic. IG versus Eldar. I think Farseer is pretty damn good against IG. I think probably the Warp Spreader Exarch is the best. Honestly, I don't know, Farseer or Warlock, who's worse? All 3 Eldar heroes are pretty fucking legit. I think they're all pretty evenly good against IG. But different circumstances. The Farseer is a lot weaker early on, and we can kind of see that coming into effect already. She was trying to inflict some bleed on the guardsman, not really achieving much. I mean, she killed 1 guardsman, but it ended up costing her life. And now the guardians are really struggling to deal with a single sentinel. A little bit poor play from Val there. He was caught out with his guardians not blobbed together, so the sentinel forced them off. Now, if a sentinel walks towards double guardians, it should get absolutely annihilated by them. They just do far too much DPS. They should be able to force him off quite easily, especially when there's green cover nearby, so that was a misplay by Val. Now, Val's doing something pretty unusual. He's actually going for Banshees. Banshees are rare against IG, but I don't think they're necessarily a bad thing. It's just, if I go for Banshees, I like to use the Banshees alone on one side of the map where I expect his capping units are, because often the IG player will rely on his hero to cap, because the hero can easily solo Guardians. The Lord General, however, extremely vulnerable to Banshees, whilst being better than the Lord Commissar and Inquisitor at dealing with Guardians, especially if there's 2 of them together. Banshee's kind of overextending here. They're going to be bleeding a lot. Well, I mean, they get some lucky specials and nearly wipe out the Guardsman squad, but they don't wipe it out entirely, and Banshees have to leave, dropping 2 models. This is a new playlist I'm trying right now. I'm not sure about all this piano. It sounds a bit grandiose. I really need to start making some royalty-free playlists. They're hard to find good quality royalty-free music though. I might have to steal the website that introduces. If anyone's got any recommendations in relation to royalty-free playlists that might be effective for Warhammer, send them my way. Nice use of the Spirit Stones there. Managed to heal every single squad of the Guardians. Prevents a lot of the models from bleeding. I think only 1 has died so far. Yeah. Fucking hell, what a gorgeous special. I really do love the Farseer special attack. It's so strong. It just attacks so swiftly. Super hard to dodge it. And it really does do quite a good amount of damage. Farseer, FYI, actually does more DPS than the Warlock early on. Now, obviously, against high model entity squads like Cadishans and Guardsmen, she's not going to be outputting the same DPS because she doesn't have Destructor. But her actual DPS with her melee weapons and her specials, way higher. Back to the point about the Banshees. I do like Banshees dealing with side cappers in this matchup, and then they scale really well when they get the range damage resistance with the Exarch in tier 2. and they can stack with the Scorpion Shield of the Autarch. But the problem in Tier 1 is they just get shot up on approach really easily. Now, you can avoid needing to use them for major fights if you have shurikens to deal with most of the ranged blob of the IG. But Val's gone for such an unconventional build because he's gone for no shurikens, which is really weird. Normally you would expect 2 or 3 shurikens against IG. IG are particularly vulnerable to shurikens. But yeah, he's not doing that. And the consequence is he's bleeding quite a lot. Now, see, it's very unusual. He's only just getting his first gen up now, whereas typically Eldar open by getting 2 or 3 gens. It's a very unconventional build. It does have potentially decent scaling options, but I feel like when you get to tier 2, you're just going to want a shuriken anyway to control the range blob. Or a Bright Lance to deal with the Chimera, so it's like, why not just get a shuriken in tier 1? I don't understand. The other thing that he has to be really careful of right now is IEDs from the Kadashans. They could be a massive threat. He's got all these relatively fragile light infantry squads, and he's got no detection bar Farsight from the Farseer. That could definitely be a problem. One good IED in retreat will easily wipe some Guardians, especially prior to getting battle equipment for the 33% HP buff. So I don't know how I feel about this build from Val, particularly because he hasn't even got battle equipment. So just look how much damage that fucking old Reliable did. That's like a third of the HP gone from these Guardians. Nearly a third off these ones. That's huge from one ability. And then they're so vulnerable to bleeding. Now the Sentinel's going to come in and start bleeding them. 27 requisition each one that goes down. Not ideal. There we go. Guardians are dying. And he's slowly losing the map. Sorry about that, guys. Bit of angry doggo issues there. I think he's slightly calmed now. Perhaps. It's always difficult to say because it's not always easy to understand the source of anger in your doggo. Anyway, looks like Val's going to be perhaps 15 seconds or so behind on the tech. But it shouldn't be too big of a deal. But the problem is he doesn't have any proper transitional AV. He's just got the potential heavy melee from Banshees, potential heavy melee from the Farseer, but he's losing his gens. So that's going to negate a lot of that, because all that heavy melee AV options that he has available to him, they're all very power intensive compared to something like the Bright Lance upgrade to the Shuriken, which is purely a requisition purchase. I just don't like it, man. I think it's such a risky way to play Eldar. And I don't think that's really how Eldar are meant to be played. They're not meant to be played as an air-moving blob. Like, obviously you can give it a go, but it's not optimal. And once again, the Guardians are bleeding loads. The other thing that I've got to complain about in regards to this playstyle is, if you're going to do this playstyle, why are you not getting any upgrades for your infantry units? They make them so much stronger. Purely for the HP increases, the battle equipment is worth it on Guardians. 33% more HP for 15 power? That is so good. Get it. And then obviously grenades and energy shields are amazing against IG as well. Literally, if it was just 33% HP buff, it'd be worth it. As of right now, all these Guardians are working off 100 HP, which is not great. Nice little ambush there. Actually does snipe down the Sentinel. Toil goes for the wipe with the Creeping Bastard's Barrage. He does get it. And that was with the Banshees, so that's a pretty big pick because they're one of the main sources of AV. Now Val's actually opted for the Wraithguard, which are an obvious choice against IG. I mean, really, it cannot be understated how obvious of a choice that is. They just counter everything in the IG roster. And then you have Guide with the Farseer, which is amazing. You have Mind War to control Ogryns. And then if you have a Shuriken, you can also combine Shuriken with Rune Armor and the Psychic Storm. And, you know, you just suppress Ogryns all day long, kill them so easily. That said, this is not exactly a situation that favours Val, in spite of the Wraithguard, because he's had his own power captured. And he does make the correct choice here, I suppose, in choosing to capture Toil's power rather than destroying it, which is important because now he has the net power advantage. He's getting plus 45, whereas Toil's only getting plus 24. So we do see some very nice use of the webway gates here, particularly the Farseer's webway gates with that ability buffing speed and infiltrating the Guardians. That is the reason, after all, he got the snipe on the Sentinel. Retinue is starting to build up on the Lord General. He's got that Commissar and the Sergeant. Both of these guys are really good upgrades, even ignoring the abilities. And the abilities just provide some good utility. If you didn't know, when you get the Sergeant model on the Lord General, all the other models get 15% extra HP. When you get the Commissar, all the other models, including the Commissar and including the Sergeant for both these buffs, by the way, they all get 15% extra damage. So yeah, it's really decent. And the Commissar himself is a decent fighter. Not quite as good as the Commissar and the Guardsman squads, I don't think, for some reason, but still a decent fighter. Commissar in the Guardsman squads has stats on par with Tactical Space Marine Sergeants. So it looks like Toil is stabilising now. He's taking out the Weber Gate by his farm and he's capturing his farm back, whereas Val has been bleeding loads with these Guardians which still lack battle equipment. And the consequence of that is that he hasn't been able to replace his gens. Could see some stormtroopers coming out from Toil soon. I would like to see that. Really punish these light infantry Guardian spams. Psychic Storm coming out, forces these Guardsmen off. Wraithguard force off the other one as well. I really want to see some shurikens and battle equipment. The fact that he is not buying battle equipment is really triggering me. Such a cost-effective upgrade. I mean, especially when you have the Warlock, because the Warlock provides that natural damage resistance. So it essentially compounds with the HP increase. You know, a 33% HP increase is even more valuable when you got 20% damage resistance. But he's still not buying it. It's just caused him so much bleed, like it's crazy. Yeah, sure, battle equipment's 15 power, but if you hadn't took all the bleed because you had 30% more HP, then you'd have replaced these gens and you'd be way ahead than 45 power that you've spent on battle equipment, you know what I mean? Now, the other concern for Val, he's actually doing alright in the combat here, and he's riding really well with his web brigades, but the concern for him is really the VPs at this point. With only 75 VPs, he's in a very awkward position. You know, I'd love to have seen what matchup it was that they actually played first where Val took it. Because this is looking like quite a dominant performance from Toil. I mean, don't get me wrong, Val's definitely making decent plays, but I don't know. The thing is, Val's playing okay, it's just his composition's just really bad. Yeah, his actual like micro and his positioning and his little plays like this jumping out of the webway and stuff, it's solid. But he's put himself in such an awkward position with this build. What the fuck is this build, man? Shouting GG but not conceding is pretty BM. But I guess it's going to be game over. He can't cap the VPs at this point. There's a triple cap against him. Ogrins are now on the field. Oh, he's just sacrificing his units. Alright. Well, there you go. That's game 2 completed. So now we're 1-1. On to the next one. Alright, on to game 3 then. Now we swapped the map to Jarilla's Forge and we're rocking the Plague Champion for Val on this map, which is pretty strong. Straight off the bat, this is a really good matchup for Val. PC I think is really solid against IG in general, but this map in particular is, for various reasons, really strong when you're playing as the CSM or the Space Marines. Mostly because the distance from base to the enemy gem farm pretty short. Which always advantages Space Marines and CSM, who get a lot of benefits from compounding a large tier 1, but struggle when they've got a small tier 1. And if you ever go for a big tier 1 build, the requirement for you to bash your opponent's gens becomes greater as the size of your tier 1 increases. And since SM and CSM get a huge advantage from having large tier 1s compared to other races, they really rely on gem bashing, so it's a good map for them. There's also a lot of shot blockers that they can utilise to dodge and get into melee, which helps when you're fighting the IG. IG prefer to have big open maps with big wide fields with very little cover, where they can get a nice firing line, kind of like Ashes of Typhon. Very little cover, free lanes where you have to charge into them. It can be quite strong for them. That said, it can also require that the IG deals with setup teams more, which can be troublesome for them. Anyway, Toil is playing the Lord Commissar. I think that's a good choice for this map. That's probably an intentional one. Because, as I said, there's a lot more like dodgy shot blockers on this. You can see him right now, he's running around the corner to evade these guardsmen. You can take advantage of that as the IG player by going for the Lord Commissar, who is the offensive tanky melee hero for the IG, even though Relic describes him as a support hero for some reason. So, we'll see where this takes us. The initial engagements go kind of how you'd expect. Obviously, Val's opted for a 2 CSM here. That means he's going to sacrifice some of that early game map control because he's rocking 3 units, one of which is Chaos Heretics, which are the cheapest unit in the game. So yeah, versus a high pressure early game race like IG, you're not going to win those initial fights. But now he's got his 2 CSM and the PC on the field, things should start to go a little bit better for him. Maybe not then when the second Sentinel comes out. So Toil is opting for his classic, the build that made him famous really, but was certainly a lot more effective back in his heyday in retail than it is now in Elite, the double Guardsman, double Sentinel build. With a Lord Commissar to tie up your shit. Could be quite annoying, but it's not a very strong map for it. As I explained before, IG prefer those open firing lines, so do the Sentinels. So that you can't evade them with shot blockers and ambush them with melee, where they can't kite you easily by backpedaling and shooting. Early game performance is looking really strong for Toil at the moment. Map control is extremely dominant. Now Val's made a good decision here to node the top. I noticed that the Lord Commissar was capping up here. Had he not noted this, the Lord Commissar no doubt would have caught this power point, but because the Lord Commissar bashes so slowly, this now is a secure gen for him. Now he just has to make sure, does Val, that he doesn't lose his power farm. I find it a bit unusual that he's sending everything up top here. He really needs to get down bottom and protect this power farm. As we can see right now, probably going to see a last turret drop to secure the push. Well, I guess it's not even necessary. He's already getting the decap. But if he drops a last turret now, Toil, there's a good chance that he could actually cap it with a Commissar. And then he's going to, you cap the opponent's gen farm and node it. You're in a fucking amazing position then. How's he going to stop the Chimera? This awkwardness down here, losing his natural power farm, forces Val to build a generator on top. Now, if Toil can get a nice decisive victory here, force off Val's army and bash this gen and decap it, and then come back down here and prevent him from building gens here, Toil's going to be an amazing spot. Now, that said, Toil is going with double Sentinel spotters. This is an extremely wreck-intensive build, and that means, look, no nodes. He doesn't even have a single power node yet. He's just building his first one now. So obviously the map control is very dominant. Toil's getting a good VP lead. He probably has had more income so far than Val, and hence he's got a larger tier 1. However, he's not actually that far ahead in tech yet. They're actually very even on power. In fact, Val is probably up in power. They're actually spot on even right now because Toil has got 2 nodes. So yes, this situation needs to continue in terms of Val not having any more than 1 gen, whereas Toil is going to drop down 3 gens next, and then Toil will start to get ahead. But as of right now, that's not the case. Looks like a Sentinel's going to go down here, kind of allowed the Havoc to set up point blank, which was regrettable, and he actually loses that Sentinel. Now that was a Sentinel with the Stomp, and remember that Stomp is not something you get for free in Elite mod. That's an extra 15 power wasted actually, and a lot of bleed here on the Guardsman too. This is going to start hurting Toil's economy usually. He really needs some... Oh my god, he loses the other Sentinel. Okay, well that was bad. Losing both of the Sentinels when they're upgraded with the Stomp is terrible for IG. I remember when I used to main IG and only play them in tournaments, I would always say if you lose your Sentinel as IG in tier 1, you're probably going to lose the game, because IG really cannot afford to be throwing away that much requisition. Now look at Toil's economy. He's just dropped his 2 generators, so he was starting to pull ahead in power compared to what Val's got. Let's ignore the Noise Marines. Val would only be on 45 power, whereas Toil's on 75. You could see how if he kept that situation the same without losing the Sentinels, and he just pinned Val in this area and didn't allow him to get any more gens because he felt unsecure at defending them and prevented him from capping this, Toil would be in a great spot, and soon he'd be heading towards a Chimera, and Val would be massively behind, and he'd probably win when he gets the Chimera out. However, right now, there is a lot of counterplay available. Not a very good mortar there, Toil. Just did a huge chunk of damage to both of his Guardsman squads. Now, the counterplay now for Val is to utilise these Noise Marines to get a Gem Bash against Toil. If Val can get a Gem Bash against Toil and then manages to keep his Gem Farm safe, we could see a situation where Val actually reaches Tier 2 first. And when you've got the concept of upgraded CSM, the Plague Champion, Nurgle Shrines, Blastmaster, it just becomes very, very scary and hard for IG to deal with if they don't have a tech lead. So we'll just have to see. Now, Toil sees this opportunity coming, so he wants a versatile defensive unit that he can use to protect his gem farm, so he gets the Kadashan Devils. Not a bad choice. The alternative would be to get a heavy weapons team. Could have been better. I don't know. Probably not, because he is playing against the Plague Champion. Can obviously get Grenade Launch Heretics quite easily. Noise Marines and Havoc soft counter the heavy weapons team anyway, but it just looks like he's been bullied off the point. This is just too much heavy infantry armor and durability, with a mucus discharge also coming out of the Plague Champion. Double Eternal War on both the CSM. This is a fat tier 1 for Val, but it pays off because he's getting the Gem Bash now, and you can see that the map control is slowly turning back into Val's favour. This now looks like a great position for Val. The Kadashans have been bleeding, the Guardsmen actually have been bleeding as well. And the result is that, well, Toil is really far behind now. He's got enough power to get to Tier 2 very soon, by the time his rep gets there, but it doesn't matter because he doesn't have the gens anymore. Wow, we actually see... Oh my god, he just sacrificed the Noise Marines with Touch of Nurgle to wipe the Guardsmen. To wipe both Guardsmen. I feel like I should be more impressed with that. That is really quite amazing. I've never seen that done in my life. I am impressed. I don't sound it, but trust me guys, I'm impressed. What the fuck was that? Beautiful, beautiful play from Val. I've never seen someone intentionally sacrifice a Noise Marine squad, or any fucking squad, to get retreat kills, because he was so close to the turrets, and you can't stop the turrets from firing. So the Noise Marines were going to wipe, and the damage from them wiping with Touch of Nurgle in retreat wiped out both heretics, both Guardsmen, and then the Lord Commissar also went down. And at that point, Toil Elite is fucked. Honestly, he was not in a great position anyway, and Toil says it was a throw. I don't necessarily think it was a throw. I think you just lost. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think the advantage was huge for Toil. Yes, he won those early engagements, but that's expected for the matchup. That's completely expected. That's not Toil being ahead. Like, Val didn't throw away any units or anything. He played as good as you can play for the Plague Champion early on with that build. As I say, if Toil managed to keep Val pinned over here and bash these gens and force Val off in these crucial engagements where he lost the 2 cents, then Toil would have been ahead, and if he lost the game after that, it would have been a throw. But the fact that Toil committed to this fight and then lost both Sentinels, failed to get rid of the gens, and then allowed Val to recap his power, I don't think it was a throw. I think at that point, the game was even. Well, it was even until the 2 Sentinels went down, and then at that point the game was actually Val favoured, because Toil had handed him this massive counterplay. If you ever lose an upgraded Sentinel in Tier 1 as IG, you need to get some wipes on the enemy, or it's going to be favoured for them. Like, that is not a position you want to be in. Anyway, that's the end of the game. Val takes this one. It is now 2-1 to Val. Okay, on to game 4. Val has swapped to the Mech Boy. And Toil is rocking the Inquisitor, the final of his IG heroes. Let's see how this plays out. Trying to think of something to say about Quest Heresy for these matchups, and I don't really know. I feel like it's very even. I feel like this is a super even matchup, and the map is really balanced for both sides as well. Now, the key thing to remember for Quest Heresy, this map, is that if you own the mid, it's fucking hard for the enemy to push against you. They're kind of forced to go down the flanks and just try and rat around and go for your gem farm, but they can't really hold the mid. And given there's 5 points in the mid and easy access to these 2 VPs, holding the mid in this map is key to success. I like the use of the Sentinel here to break the cover that's not advantageous to Toil. I like breaking this cover. I think that was intentional. I do like that because this cover is so small that Guardsmen will struggle to use it effectively, yet other squads that are smaller in size, like shooters or the mech boy, can use it really easily. And whilst you would think, oh well, it's on Toil's side of the map, so isn't that helpful to Toil? No, not necessarily, because if he loses an engagement and then needs to push back out, the enemy can use the cover on his side of the map to pin him away from being able to push into the mid again. So yeah, it's not necessarily that helpful. Could actually be really disadvantageous. Yet he chooses to keep this cover and carefully avoids crushing it with the Sentinel because he can use that defensively with his Guardsman. Hammer of the Witch is coming down from the Inquisitor, snipes the Slugger Boy straight away. Slugger Boys only have 100 HP each, so they die immediately to one Hammer of the Witches. Guardsman getting chased off here by other shooter blob. Ooh, early electric armor. That was fast. Could wipe out a Guardsman squad potentially. It looks like they'll be alright. That was a fucking quick electric armor. That was clearly his first purchase. And he goes for 2 gens right away, straight into the electric armor. Leaves this Guardsman squad with only 2 models. And now the awkward thing... Oh, Toil's going for double Sentinels again. This is pretty awkward then, losing all these models. I was going to say, the awkward thing here is that Toil doesn't have the Sergeant yet. So he has to pay extra now to rebuy the Guardsman unless he purchases the Sergeant. Now, if he purchases the Sergeant, as he's doing, it's going to take really long to actually get this Guardsman squad back out on the field. Because he waits for the Sergeant upgrade, then he has to wait for the reinforcements. So only now are they coming back on the field. Now, he used the time fairly well because he was repairing his scent, and that's cool. But the whole point of what I'm trying to say here is that this has facilitated time for the mech boy to secure his position in the mid. And we actually see a mech boy turret. How cool is that? You see these so rarely. I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. I think I did that a last turret would be great in the mid. If I didn't, I was thinking about it. Well, fuck a last turret. Val's taking that the other way, and he's just straight up building a mech boy turret. So Stomp goes down from the Sentinel, gets baited out, and is easily dodged by the Sluggers. Because of the presence of the turret, Guardsman is choosing to get the Flamers. I actually really like Flamers against Orcs, they're very strong, but the mech boy is doing so much work to prevent this, and it looks like a Sentinel's going to go down again right at the start. Maybe. He doesn't have enough for a teleport. Doesn't matter, he takes out the Sentinel. Massive amounts of bleed. There's no gens up for Twilight. This is a really awkward position for him. I think he needs to get a 3rd Guardsman squad, even though that has been nerfed so much in Elite, because the Sergeants now have extra upkeep. Well, not an Elite nerf that. They're actually better in retail, but... Sorry, they're actually worse in retail. But compared to previous patches, there's double last turret there. Not fuck. Oh my god. I'm saying last turrets because you never see normal non-suppressing turrets other than last turrets. There's double orc turrets. Orc turret? Who says orc turret? What the fuck is that? You never see these things. I don't think I've ever said orc turret in a cast before in my life, and I've got over 100 videos. Amazing, amazing showcase of the value of the mech boy turrets here. Just wonderful. I love it. And the really cool thing about these, and we even see a Warbanner as well, very nice building usage by the Orcs to get a nice early advantage on this map because it's so helpful if you hold the mid on this map. It's so fucking hard for him to push. Look at this. He can't push. He just loses his Sentinel straight away trying to do it. Amazing. Great play. Amazing stuff. I love it. Some really awesome victory plays there from Valhero to help him secure this win in both this game and the last game. Touch of Nurgle on Noise Marines, intentionally letting them wipe and retreat so they blow up guardsmen. Fucking brilliant, mate. Amazing stuff. That is it for this series. I do apologise, guys. This was definitely one of the shorter ones, and it's so annoying that I couldn't find that first game. I don't even know what the matchup was. I've asked Toil, and he's forgot, and so has Val. It is what it is. Valhero is going to be the winner of the upper bracket, so he's going to go on to the grand finals of the Elite League Season 7, and he's going to start off with one victory because he's won the upper bracket. Toil is going to get knocked down into the losers bracket, and he's going to be fighting between Adilla, Crisis, Blood Rain, and Tex, and Inakura. So yes, we're going to see them next. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Top it out.